Hey, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up? But gracious, good morning to you good people. It's your girl KB. You know what I do and you know why I do it. It is Monday morning. It is December 15th and it's 3:48 in the a.m. I'm leaning over to look at my clock here. I want to get serious for a moment and talk about a documentary that I watched this weekend. And it's a movie made by Jordan Peele. And it just really challenged my thinking. You guys know I am as radical as they come in addressing the isms and schisms and what we consider our everyday norms and calling out blatant racism, institutionalized racism to be more specific, and people's comfort with it. But I want to talk about this movie because for as much as I know and as much as I speak on, I really had to reflect on how much I still have to unlearn. You know, looking at the lies I bought into because they were taught and reinforced, I share and I continue to share on, my love for television. Growing up, there was a show called Dream On, and it was basically this guy talking about how TV was his babysitter, and in instances in his life, he would flash on movies that kind of reinforce his thought process, if you will. And I'm kind of the same way. My sister and I loved the show because we could really relate to what was being conveyed, right? So the movie High Horse by Jordan Peele, it is on Peacock. Watch it. Now, one of the things I really learned, and challenged all my perceptions, is I love Westerns as a kid. When we had TV, we had like 3 channels, and then, we had the 2 different frequencies, the UHF and the VHF. And then the onset of cable, we had more specific stuff. But, black and white TV is my thing. They call it classic or vintage TV now. But that was my thing because that's all we had. I remember when color TV was introduced. Boom. Think about that. Our shows were filmed in Technicolor. Think about that. Anyway, I'm saying all this to say, this movie was amazing because I was into Westerns, or as I like to say, cowboy movies. And this particular movie talked of the black cowboy and how black people were altogether pushed out of American folklore as far as the cowboy is concerned. The music, the people, the representation. I think that's why I loved The Harder They Fall so much, because it brought that genre in our faces. And it told some factual information wrapped in a fictional story, if you will. Like The Lone Ranger. The story of the Lone Ranger. Now, when we think of the Lone Ranger, we think of the white man with the mask. The Lone Ranger was a black man. You know, think of Jay Silverheels and his pidgin English, you know, the character, the racist stereotype. But the Lone Ranger was actually a black man. Bass Reeves, black lawman. You know, the movie was a way of reclaiming history. And in one of his commentaries in the movie, Jordan Peele talked about the movie Nope. And he basically said he was talking about the illusion that America holds on to, the fantasy that America holds on to, or the illusion that just kind of draws people into some insanity. Also said, you know, the movie was a way of reclaiming our history and framing it the way it should be. You know, one of the biggest attractions in cowboying, yeah, I said it like that, cowboying, is the rodeo. Now, you can't mention the rodeo without saying Bill Pickett. But we somehow managed to whitewash him out of the story altogether. He was the man that invented or who first used bulldogging. Now it's to tackle a bull, you know, in order to move from one place to another. But you've never heard the name Bill Pickett associated with it until you heard of the Black Rodeo, the Bill Pickett Rodeo, or you did some real research. Stagecoach Mary was a black woman. Never saw that in any Western. And it's funny, if you've ever watched Bonanza, you have to watch it all the way to the end. The character Little Joe, the Michael Landon character. Did you know Little Joe's mother was Creole? Ben Cartwright got with a Creole woman. That's mentioned in, you know, in passing in this, one of the storylines. But I caught it. You know, you have to pay attention to our history. And I'm going to leave you with this as you think about the stuff. First, you got to watch the movie again. It's High Horse, and it's on Peacock. The term cowboy is a racist term. Yes, 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 yes. See, when we talked about the line of demarcation, farmhand or ranch hand was used to describe white workers. Cowboy, see, emphasis on the boy, was used to describe the black workers. When you look at the early stages of the formation of the Kentucky Derby, you will see most of the people who tended to the horses and the early jockeys were black. Right? Here's why. These folks were usually from descendants from Senegal who had horses. trained horses, bred horses, know how to deal with horses. The Senegalese people. Man, mind blown. And the subtleties of racism that are built into our society really need to be examined.